Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Heroes. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
And today we're talking about the top 10 directorial debuts of the 2000s, the aughts. We did the 90s. We figured it only made sense to now do the 2000s. And maybe we'll do the 2010s after this. I don't know. We haven't really talked about it, but maybe we'll move on to a different top 10 list after this. I don't know. But we're enjoying these top 10 lists, so we decided couldn't pass this up. Wanted to do top 10 directorial debuts of the 2000s. And so here we are. We are doing that. And in making this list, there's again with the 90s, there's a lot of movies that I either didn't realize were directorial debuts or just had kind of forgotten about. Mm-hmm. And in making this list, my top 10, I'm really pretty happy with my top 10. I've got a lot of honorable mentions again, but with my top 10, I may not have a whole lot to say about some of the movies because I haven't watched them in a long time. Like putting the list together, I was like, oh man, I should really watch this movie again. But obviously I didn't have time to do that before we made the list, but hopefully we'll have a decent amount of stuff to talk about. I'm curious how many of mine you've seen and how many of your list I've seen, because I'm very curious as to how much overlap we'll have on this list.
I don't think we're going to have that much overlap because I realized how many movies I hadn't seen making this list.
Yeah.
This list was a little challenging, but for a different reason than it was for making the 90s list. The 2000s was not a great decade for films. I would say it's next to the 80s. It's the worst. 80s is pretty bad. 80s is pretty bad. 70s is probably the best because it was the most like experimental.
Like yeah.
Yeah. Like a lot of the 70s movies, like, I mean, I guess you could say 80s too, even though the quality was less, but like the way movies were being made in the 70s kind of gave birth to, like you said, it was a renaissance for filmmaking. But yeah, 2000s was tough because I was like, I haven't seen a lot of the movies that were directorial debuts, unfortunately. And of the ones that I had seen, I was like, man, like, can I really put that on my list?
Right.
Because there are a lot of movies that are missing from my list that I know some of our listeners and viewers are going to be like, what? That's not on your list. I know there are a lot missing that should be on the list just based on reputation alone, but I try to make these lists with some integrity.
Right, sure.
So I am certain that you have seen most of the movies on my list.
Okay.
And I'm pretty confident that it's going to be the opposite for me and your list. I only think there's going to be one or two movies that overlap that are going to be on both of our lists, but we'll see. Yeah,
I have a feeling there's going to be at least one, but I am curious, but we'll see. But I think we'll have one. There's one movie I would be somewhat surprised if it's not on your list, but we'll see, I guess.
What's the year of the movie?
2006.
Okay. I think I know what movie that is.
Yeah.
And I think it's on my list, but
okay. All right, cool.
We'll see.
All right. I started off last time, so I think you should start us off this time with your number 10 choice.
Okay. Number 10 for me, one of my favorite directors of all time. He gets a lot of hate, but I don't care. I love him. And that is Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. 2004. He gave us a new kind of zombie with Dawn of the Dead. He also written by James Gunn. I really want them to collab again because this movie's great. I've seen this twice. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, it was okay. But then I'd like watch it again and like actually paid attention to it and saw some of the nuance in it. And, it grew on me on that second watch. So this I had to put this on the list because, it's the first movie of one of my favorite directors, and he kind of reinvigorated the subgenre of zombie horror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great choice too, because like you said, he kind of took the zombie genre and changed it up, and part of that might have been James Gunn too, because I remember like the big thing about that movie was the zombies were not these slow, shambling or whatever kind of.
They were very
creatures.
fast.
They were running after the
sprinting.
I didn't see this one in the theater, but I was working at Blockbuster at the time when it came out, and I rented it. And I don't remember why I rented it, because it's not really my type of movie. I'm not a huge zombie movie fan.
Neither am I.
But I must have either was recommended to me, or maybe I saw the trailer and thought it looked interesting enough that I decided to rent it. And it really surprised me. I really liked it the first time I watched it. And I think I watched it again and liked it even more. And so this is definitely one that I have not seen in a really long time that I definitely need to revisit.
Yeah, I watched it for the first time like 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And then I watched it again last year. And, that kind of just solidified my thought, like James Gunn and Zack Snyder are really a match made in heaven.
Right, yeah.
When you got James Gunn's writing with Zack Snyder's direction, like the movie has no choice but to be good.
Right. Yeah, I need to watch that one again. And I'm ashamed to admit, I've actually I own it. It's sitting, I can see it right here, right next to the remake, but I've never seen the original. So I've seen Night of the Living Dead, which I watched just for the first time this past year, but I've never seen Dawn of the Dead or Day of the I've never really seen any of the other George Romero Dead movies.
Neither have I. We're in the same boat.
All right. Number 10 for me, I decided to pull all the movies off my shelf so I could hold it up and show it. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll get to see most of them are still on DVD. I need to upgrade most of these. But number 10 for me is In Bruges, 2008's In Bruges, directed by Martin McDonagh, who would go on to direct 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and he directed the movie last year, which I can't even think of the name now, The Banshees of Inisherin with Colin Farrell. This movie surprised me. It was like right up my alley. I really enjoy kind of like Quentin Tarantino-esque crime movies, and this is about 2 hitmen who are kind of hiding out in Bruges. And Colin Farrell is bored out of his mind, and it's him and Brendan Gleeson. They're the 2 hitmen, and Ray Fiennes is like kind of the bad guy in the movie, kind of after them. And but Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, it's not surprising to me that they were paired up again for the Banshees of Inisherin, because they are just so good together. And this movie is so funny. It's so good. I've not seen it in a while, but I need to rewatch it because it's just Colin Farrell knocks it out of the park. It's one of the best Colin Farrell performances, hands down, in my opinion.
I got to check it out.
Yeah, you should, for sure.
Number 9 for me. This is Gina Prince Bythewood's. Am I saying her last name right? Yeah, Gina Prince Bythewood. Love and Basketball from the year 2000. Now, this film, it's a very good film. And earlier, like when it came out, it had a reputation of being this great love story. But at least amongst younger people, amongst teenagers, preteens, whatever. But then the target audience that this movie was made for grew up and like saw it with adult eyes and realized that one of the main characters, Quincy, is a horrible human being and treated Monica terribly throughout the entire movie. And it's still a great film, but it's great for a different reason now. It teaches you how not to treat people you love. Because
cool. Okay.
It is. Don't get me wrong. It's still a good film. I still like watching it from time to time. It's actually been like 3 or 4 years since I watched it, but yeah, he is horrible to that girl in this movie.
That's funny. This is one I never saw this one, but I had heard a lot of good things about it over the years. And that's funny because this is the first time I've heard about it kind of changing or people seeing it in a different light kind of as they get older. So I'll have to kind of, whenever I watch this movie, I'll have to kind of keep that in mind and try to put myself in like 20-year-old me's kind of place of mind or whatever to try to see the movie. But it is interesting. It's nice that it still holds up as a film, but just kind of, but like you said, maybe for different reasons. That's cool. Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunately it's accurate.
Right.
So that, that's one of the reasons why it still holds up. And this, it goes through different time periods. Like in the movie, like each act is represented by a quarter because it's basketball. So it's in 4 acts, and the first act is the first quarter, so on and so forth. And it goes from the 80s all the way up until present day. Well, present day at that time, which was 2000. So it spans over like 12 or 13 years.
Right.
And it does a really good job of capturing the feel of the time periods. It has a fantastic soundtrack, and it's great for a directorial debut. I didn't know that it was her directorial debut until I made this list.
Right. Yeah, I did that for a couple movies. I think, there's a couple on my list, or at least one on my list that I was like, I had no idea that was their debut, and so had to put it on the list. Maybe 2 even. All right, number 9 for me is 2007's Gone Baby Gone, directed by Ben Affleck. I saw this in the theater. It's not my favorite Affleck directed movie. I think that would actually probably be The Town. I really like The Town a lot.
Yeah.
And when I saw this in the theater, I remember thinking that it was just okay. But my wife and I rewatched it a couple years ago, and I really enjoyed it that second time around. And I thought it was really good, and I thought it was suspenseful, and the performances were all really good, especially Ed Harris and Casey Affleck. And I just realized that I have 3 Michelle Monaghan movies on my list. So she was getting a lot of work in the 2000s. Yeah. Have you seen Gone Baby Gone?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to. I thought I had a Michelle Monaghan movie on my list, but I guess I don't. That's one of the movies that I knew should be on the list just based on reputation alone.
Right.
But I haven't seen it, so I couldn't put it on there.
I think you'd like it. I think you should check it out. I'm curious to know if you would just think it was okay, like I did the first time I saw it, or if you'd really like it. But
I mean, I like Ben Affleck's movies. My personal favorite is Argo. I think that is an excellent film. Yeah. And The Town is a very, very close second.
Right. And I really liked Air too. I think you liked Air as well. That was really good.
I loved Air.
Yeah, Air was really good. So yeah.
Number 8. I just watched this movie for the first time last year, and it was a movie that I had always wanted to see but never got around to watching it. And it was a movie that I knew I was going to like before I watched it, just based on the concept, and it has one of my favorite actors in it. I think this person can do no wrong, and that is The Cell, 2000's The Cell by Tarsem Singh.
Yes.
This movie is fantastic. It's got Jennifer Lopez in it, and Vincent D'Onofrio, who's the actor that I was referring to. I love anything that he's in.
Yeah. He's a phenomenal.
Yeah, he is one of the most underrated actors of all time, because I've never seen him phone it in. He gives it all, no matter how good or bad the movie is, and I love that about him. But yeah, like the concept of the movie is so dope. Like they're trying to find the last victim of this serial killer by going in his mind, because normally the movie is about catching the serial killer. They've all the catalyst. They've already caught the serial killer. Now they're trying to find the last victim. So I was like, that is a very good twist on a detective story, but it's also this weird dark sci-fi story when they go into his mind, and you see how really messed up this guy is. Right. And one scene that has always stuck out, even from when I saw the trailer as a kid, this always stuck out to me. There's a scene where Jennifer Lopez is inside of his mind, and she's like in his throne room, and he has a cape that's hooked to his back. and the cape is so big that it covers the walls. And when he gets up and walks down the stairs, the wall, like the cape on the wall, starts moving, and it is probably the best shot in the movie. It is so weird and dark and fantastical. It's a very well directed movie.
It's funny, to let everybody know, we're recording this on July 5th. Yesterday was the 4th of July, and my family went over to Stu's house. And while I believe you were like finishing up grilling the burgers, I was looking at some of your movies and I saw The Cell on Blu-ray, and I was like, oh, I need to watch that again. I thought that. So it's funny that's on your list. I have a funny story about this movie. I very much need to rewatch it. I don't remember much about it, but this came out when I was in high school, and a friend of mine and it was during the day. I don't know if it was 2000, so we must have been depending on when it came out, we were either juniors or seniors. And we decided we were going to go see this movie, and we knew we were running late. And so we knew we were going to kind of be walking in to the movie after it had already started, but we were a little bit on a time crunch. I think she had to like go babysit afterwards or something, so we couldn't go see like the next showing. But we were talking as we were walking down the hall towards the auditorium, and we see The Cell listed, and we're like, oh, here it is. We walk in, the movie's playing, which we expected. We sit down, then the movie ends like 30 minutes later. And I remember going, this was like the shortest movie of all time. And I was like, and it made no sense. And then we realized later that because we were talking and weren't paying attention, we walked into the wrong auditorium. We walked into the wrong auditorium for an earlier showing. And so then we were even later to the one we were going to go to. And so we just, for the longest time, I only saw like the last half hour of that movie and had no idea what was going on because we couldn't go see like a later showing because she had some time commitment or something. But yeah, I did eventually see it once it came out on DVD, and I remember liking it. I didn't love it, but it's one that I need to revisit. I definitely appreciate the visual style of it. Tarsem Singh is definitely a visionary. I really like his movie, The Fall. Did you ever see The Fall?
I've not seen that.
That one I remember, that's another one I need to rewatch because I think I've only seen it once, but I remember being really impressed with that movie. Very cool pick. Good pick.
Yeah.
Number 8 for me is 2007's Michael Clayton, directed by Tony Gilroy. Have you ever seen Michael Clayton?
Nope.
Man, you have never saw In Bruges either, right? So are you 3 for 3?
I'm 0 for 3.
That's what I meant. 0 for 3. Yeah. This was nominated for Best Picture in 2007, and Tilda Swinton won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for this movie. It's kind of a slow burn, but it is a really well-written thriller, and it's really good. I don't want to spoil anything. It's kind of like, it's about, kind of corporate, not espionage, but kind of corporate covering ups. There's a kind of a giant corporation that's in the middle of a lawsuit, and Michael Clayton kind of plays this fixer. When somebody gets into a problem, he shows up and kind of fixes it, but his life is also in shambles. It's really, really good. Very, very well done. And it has an amazing ending. Definitely worth watching.
I will check it out.
Number 7 for you.
Number 7. Okay. 2004's Napoleon Dynamite by Jared.
Nice.
Napoleon Dynamite is, in my opinion, one of the best like coming of age stories that there ever has been, because it stresses the importance of just being yourself.
Yeah.
The title character is loosely based on the director, and he is always himself, no matter how awkward he is. It's a very silly and kind of stupid movie because there really is no plot. It's just stuff happening. But the characters are so you can't not watch them because they're so awkward. They have your eyes glued to the screen.
Yes.
And I love this movie so much. The first time I watched this movie was actually in school. It was at the end of the school year when there wasn't much to do. It was 9th grade, and my history teacher put on this movie, and we were like, "What is this?" And I remember one of my friends was asking, like, when was this made? Because it was present day, but it looked like it was like 89 at the same time. Exactly, yeah. But it's just a great coming of age movie. Like I said, it has no plot, but it just tells a great story of just being yourself. Because like I said, no matter what happens, no matter what anybody says to him, Napoleon is himself all the time and is unrelenting about it.
I do have it. I let somebody borrow that movie years ago and never got it back, and I think I had to rebuy it. I was double checking to see if I still had it on the shelf. I do have it.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to accept the fact that this movie is 20 years old now, because
that's crazy.
That's a great choice. That's an honorable mention of mine. It didn't make it to my top 10, but that's another movie that I need to revisit because I have not watched it in years. Mm-hmm. But I have a great memory of, I was working at Blockbuster again when this movie came out, and I rented it, watched it, loved it, and wanted to share it. So I made my brother watch it. My brother and I were living in a house together at the same time back then. And I sat him down and I was like, you got to watch this movie, dude. I was like, it's crazy, but it's funny. And he laughed so hard throughout the entire thing. And then when it ended, he goes, man, that movie was stupid. And I was like so angry. I was like, you thought it was funny. But I don't know if he did.
Both are true.
Right. That's very true.
I actually have a special edition Blu-ray of it. Let me go get it real quick.
Okay, sure.
For those of you that have not seen the movie, Napoleon likes to draw things, and one of the things that he drew was a liger, which is a mix of a lion and a tiger. And they made this special edition, the 10-year anniversary of this movie. They made a liger print Blu-ray.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and it, unfortunately, it is in a sleeve, but it's okay.
Yeah, you have told me about how you hate when movies are packed in sleeves, and I've always kind of been like, well, it doesn't really bother me. They're not. I feel like they're okay, but we've recently talked about the Alien movies, which I don't own digitally, and so I popped the Blu-ray in, and that anthology I have, the discs are in sleeves, and both Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection like skipped on me because they're. I'm assuming it has to do with pulling it in and out of those sleeves.
Yep. So like when I get Universal box sets, I immediately take them out, put them in jewel cases. I'm actually not, I'm going to try to avoid getting Universal box sets because of that reason. I still might get the other Universal Creatures, Universal Monsters box set, the one with Creature from Black Lagoon. Mm-hmm. But
Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, Bride of Frankenstein. I got the other one with Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, and
Invisible Man, right?
Yes, I have that one, but I still might get that other one, but I'm iffy on it because it comes in that sleeve. So
yeah, I hear you. I got them both, but I'm after watching those two Alien movies, I think maybe I should take mine out of the case and put them in some jewel cases because it's unfortunate. Yeah.
My Jurassic World is ruined, and I only took it out of there once just to put it in the jewel case, and I can't even watch it now.
That sucks. All right, number 7 for me. I'm curious if you've seen this movie. I'm assuming you haven't, but maybe you have. I don't know. But that is what year did this one come out? 2002's The Salton Sea.
I've not seen it.
Yeah.
0 for 4.
0 for 4. This stars Val Kilmer, and it also has the man who can do no wrong to you, Vincent D'Onofrio. Vincent D'Onofrio plays he's like a drug. I can't really call him a kingpin. But he's like kind of a main dealer kind of guy, and his name is Pooh Bear. And he's, I guess, done so much cocaine that he has no nose. So he wears like this really fake looking prosthetic nose, and he like can't breathe very well. So he squeaks when he'll say something and then he'll go, like when he's like trying to breathe. It's a really good performance from Vincent D'Onofrio. It's a cool film noir kind of, mystery. Really, really well done. Directed by DJ Caruso. I don't think I said that. And probably my favorite DJ Caruso film. I I think it's just really solid. He went on to direct, I think he directed Eagle Eye with Shia LaBeouf and Disturbia.
Okay.
Or if that's what, was that what it was called? Yeah, Disturbia, which actually was a pretty decent movie, I thought. And I can't remember what else. But this movie I really, really like, The Salton Sea. It's a very cool noirish vibe to it. I think you'd like it as well. The less you know about it going into, I think the better.
Yeah, I like noir stories. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'd like that. Number 6. This is a comic book movie. And it is one of the most well adapted comic book movies because it is directed. You already know what I'm going to say.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. It's directed by the person that actually made the comic book, and that is 2005's Sin City, directed by Frank Miller. Robert Rodriguez was going to direct, but the deeper he got into it, he was like, I have to get Frank Miller because if I'm going to do this right, I got to get the person that made this to actually put it on screen because his vision is so specific, and I'm glad that Rodriguez made that decision because it's one of the coolest looking movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, so I got to correct you a little bit. It's actually co-directed by both of them, Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was just Frank Miller.
Yeah, no, it was both. And Robert Rodriguez was in the Directors Guild at the time, and the Directors Guild had rules, which is weird because if you think, and maybe some of these directors weren't in the Directors Guild, but like there's a lot of dual directors for movies, like the Hughes brothers and things like that, and now the Coen brothers. I'm curious if the Coen brothers left the guild to start getting co-directing credit. But anyway, Robert Rodriguez was like, Frank Miller's going to direct this movie with me, and the Directors Guild was like, you can only have one director. And so Robert Rodriguez left the Directors Guild so that Frank Miller could still be a director on this film, a credited director on the film.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, but it is Frank Miller's directorial debut. So that does, yes. I think that still counts.
Yeah, it counts.
This was actually not what you were saying, what I was thinking of originally when you said comic book movie. But when you said 2005, I was like, okay, I know what it is. But I was thinking of a different thing that's on my honorable mentions. So
all right.
I'll bring that up later. But yeah, Sin City, I was obsessed with the trailer for Sin City. When the trailer came out, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I can't wait to see this movie. And I ended up buying a lot of Frank Miller's, or not a lot, like 3 of the Frank Miller Sin City graphic novels and reading them, and just could not wait to see that movie, and still love it. We need to talk about it on the podcast, actually.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right, number 6 for me is the movie that I thought that might be the movie that we shared. But when you said you did not have a Michelle Monaghan movie on the list, I realized maybe not. So this is 2006's Mission Impossible 3.
That's part of my honorable mentions.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Directed by J.J. Abrams, who had directed TV. He had directed Tom Cruise. I believe the story is Tom Cruise saw episodes of Alias that J.J. Abrams had directed and really liked Alias and reached out to J.J. to see if he wanted to do the 3rd Mission Impossible, which he did. And a lot of people consider this the best one.
It's my favorite.
I'm not in that camp, but I really like it a lot. It reinvigorated the franchise after the really terrible part 2. And I had this lower on my list originally, and I was like, you know what? And in fact, I meant to put this at number 5 now that I'm thinking about it. But whatever, I already said it. So it's number 6. But yeah, really solid action film, Mission Impossible 3. Don't know what else to say about it other than Philip Seymour Hoffman's amazing in it. And J.J. Abrams knocked it out of the park, in my opinion.
Yes, he did. I watched that for the first time the year before last. I had blasted through the franchise.
Getting ready for Dead Reckoning.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, 3 is definitely my favorite. Although I wouldn't say it's objectively the best one, but I like it because it was so different from the first 2.
Right.
The first one is like actually tries to be like a serious movie, and it it is. And the second one is just not good.
Right. The 3rd one, I remember hearing complaints about the first one not being enough of a team movie, which is what the show was. Mission Impossible, the show was very much about the IMF team performing a mission and stuff. And even though he has a small team in Mission Impossible 1 that he puts together, it's not really a team movie. Even I guess like the opening sequence where everybody gets killed off, that was kind of more like the Mission Impossible TV show. The second movie is just an action movie, and it's definitely not like the TV show at all. This one brought the kind of that team together and so I remember reading that people really liked this one because it was more to the spirit of the TV show.
The first one is like it's like a serious James Bond kind of.
Right. Yeah.
But the third one is where they really like kind of figure out what the franchise is going to be going forward, and it's very evident. Like the franchise finally found its voice.
Yes.
So yeah.
Number 5 for you. We're on the top 5 now.
Top five. 2005's The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Nice.
By Judd Apatow. This movie started a wave of like Judd Apatow, Seth Rogen type movies.
Yeah.
And they just came out with like hit after hit for like 7 years.
Yeah.
Objectively, they're not these great cinematic masterpieces of comedy.
Sure.
But they are well aware of their target audience and play to that so well. I've come to think of it, I've never seen, maybe Tyler Perry, but I've never seen creators know their target audience that well. And it's just, this movie, like I said, it was the first one. It was the first Steve Carell movie that I had seen. It's got some hilarious scenes that people still love to this day. But it just kind of brought back the kind of comedies that were in the 80s.
Yeah.
I can't really think of it. Maybe I almost want to say National Lampoons, but not quite as goofy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And that is a great choice too. This one should be on my honorable mentions. I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great choice. I really like Judd Apatow. I'm trying to think of the last movie he's made, but I really like a lot of Judd Apatow's comedies. My biggest issue with his movies are they tend to be too long, especially for comedies.
I agree.
It has an editing problem, I think, where he just either has too much. Like, I can understand that too, especially with the actors he's got. I'm sure a lot of it, they improv a lot. And so it's probably a lot, he just doesn't want to cut stuff out. But like most of his comedies are like 2 hours and 15 minutes or so, or then they'll have like an extended version, like Funny People, which I really liked. Funny People, I want to say was like 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 40 or something like that. The extended version or the unrated version. It was long.
That's really long for a comedy.
Yeah. And so that's my biggest complaint with Judd Apatow, but he's really good. And I remember hearing a story with Jason Segel when they were making, I don't remember if it was something, I think it was Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which is what Jason Segel wrote. And he was like trying to be funny in the script. He was trying to write the script funny. And Judd Apatow said, don't worry about the jokes. You and the other actors that are in the movie, you guys are funny. You will find the jokes. He was like, write the story, focus on the story and get that right. And then, we'll figure out the jokes. And so, and he said that was like really helpful advice. And I feel like you can really see that in Judd Apatow's movies, because a lot of his movies have a lot of heart.
Yeah, I was gonna say that same thing. His movies are like, especially this one, Knocked Up. Like those two movies. There's another one that I'm drawing a blank of, but those movies, like, they understand what they are at their core without the comedy. So that just solidifies what you said. Like his movies really know how to tug at you from like introspectively to tug at you.
Yeah. All right, number 5 for me. This should have been number 6. I meant to swap Mission Impossible and this movie, but I forgot, and so this is technically number 6. But number 5 for me is 2002's Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, directed by George Clooney. This is a really cool, interesting film, and I think George Clooney does a very good job directing it, and it makes it a fantastic debut. But I also put a lot of that onto it's written by Charlie Kaufman. And so it's not as crazy as like being John Malkovich and stuff, but it is. Yeah. It's got some of that Charlie Kaufman-esque stuff in it, and George Clooney did a great job with it. He knew how to direct the material, but I think that's Charlie Kaufman. I just love Charlie Kaufman, so that's part of it. I don't have much to say because this is one of those movies that I mentioned earlier that I have not seen in forever. I just remember thinking it was cool. Sam Rockwell is awesome in it, and yeah, it's a cool movie. So,
have not seen it so far. I'm 1 for 6.
Yeah.
Number 4. We briefly talked about this movie before we started recording, but that is 2004's Saw, directed by James Wan.
Yes.
This movie is very, very good. The only issue that I have with it is that you can really kind of tell that it is a first movie.
Right.
That being said, it's still great. It is possibly the best movie in its subgenre as far as gore porn horror, because it is not just about the gore. It tells a really good detective story. It is a noir detective story first, and then it adds the gore to that. And it is very well written. I love movies where you have to figure things out. It's very kind of Batman-esque in that regard, but it is at the time it came out, it was very unique. It was a very dirty looking film, and it has one of the best plot twists I have ever seen in a movie.
Yes, so this is on one of my honorable mentions, but I agree with you 100% about the plot twist. I mean. And I hate talking. If you haven't seen Saw, I hate even saying that there's a plot twist because that just like you are now expecting something. And going into Saw, I mean, Saw is 20 years old now. I'm sure everybody kind of knows the twist, but going into Saw not knowing that there's a twist, is the best way to go into that movie. Because absolutely, that's how it was for me. Again, I rented this when I was working at Blockbuster, and I would say for the most part, I was. Again, because it's not really my type of movie, but I was watching it and I was like, this is okay. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't loving it. And then the end happened, especially with that amazing music. Yeah. And I was like, this is incredible. It just, it was awesome.
There are a handful of movies that literally make my jaw drop, and this is one of them. The Departed is another one, and when what happens, I was like, wow.
The Sixth Sense was one that did that for me when I saw it in the theater. A buddy of mine was really smart and didn't say anything about there being a twist. He just said, you have to come see this movie. And so I went with him and saw the movie. And when the reveal happens at the end, with Bruce Willis, I turned to my friend and my jaw was dropped. I was like, and he was like, he just sat there and looking at me going, yeah. It was awesome.
Man, that's funny.
My biggest complaint with the direction of Saw is, and I would blame this on maybe just it being his first movie and maybe trying to be a little bit, but give a kind of visual flair. But to me, it was very unnecessary. There's like 2 or 3 times in the movie where, like, I remember there's a scene where like Danny Glover's racing to get somewhere and he's driving, and there's all these like quick, like, kind of like crazy, like just chaotic shots and stuff. And I just never have loved. But overall, I think it is a really solid debut. I mean, obviously, it's kind of like what we talked about with Blair Witch, where I don't know the budget for Saw. It was more than Blair Witch, obviously, but it was a huge success.
Huge hit. Yeah.
I mean, they're still making Saw movies. So
Yeah.
number 4 for me is 2000. When did this come out? 2005's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, directed by Shane Black.
I was absolutely sure that was going to be on your list.
Yes.
No, I have not seen it.
This is the third Michelle Monaghan movie. Robert Downey Jr., this is pre-Iron Man, and would not be surprised if this movie had a big hand in him getting that role, because he kind of plays a very Tony Stark-esque character. I mean, it's Robert Downey Jr. It's what he's doing best, you know?
Yeah.
He plays a, petty theft or petty crime. He's somebody who's with a life of petty crime who stumbles into an audition. He's like running away from the cops, stumbles into an audition for a movie and like nails it. And so then gets the part of a detective, and he ends up being paired with a real life detective played by Val Kilmer, who hates him. and then it's a Shane Black movie, so then all sorts of stuff happens that they get caught up in and everything. It's really good. It's really, really good.
That is another movie that I've always wanted to see.
Yeah, you should definitely check it out. And I really need to upgrade this, so it's not. I need to get a Blu-ray of it, because it's definitely worth it. It's a great film.
Nice. All right, we're in the top 3 now. I've only seen this movie twice, but it's very, very good. It's one of the most well-written movies that I've seen. I saw it maybe like a year after it came out, and that's Little Miss Sunshine by Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris in their directorial debut. It is so very good, and it is it's another coming of age type story, but it's not just the coming of age of the title character,
right?
It's a coming of age for the whole family. Mm-hmm. Everybody, like this family is weird. Everybody's really like quirky and kind of messed up, especially Steve Carell and Paul Dano's characters. They are easily the most messed up characters in the movie. But I really, again, it's just a very well written movie, and it's so well written that it's in almost every screenwriting video that I have seen.
Right.
It's like screenwriting 101, especially when it comes to internal conflict and character development, especially for the dad. The dad probably has the most character development in the movie. It's really good. It's not one that I can watch over and over. Like I said, I've only seen it twice, but it's so good. So good.
Yes, I agree. This one, again, I guess I just forgot about it when I was making the list, because this should have been on my honorable mentions too. I loved this movie when it came out. I'm not surprised that you see it in a lot of screenwriting videos. It did, and I just double checked, because I remember Alan Arkin won the Oscar for it.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was fairly certain it won the Oscar for Best Writing, and it did. It won the Best Original Screenplay. And it was nominated for Best Picture. It is so well done, and every actor in the movie in that family gives just an amazing performance.
Mm-hmm.
And like especially Abigail Breslin, the little girl,
mm-hmm.
when she's got a scene where she's just like sobbing or crying about, and I don't even remember exactly what it is, but
mm-hmm.
She just gives such a good performance. Steve Carell's performance is amazing. Paul Dano's, I mean, everybody's so good in it. Greg Kinnear, he's the guy that plays the dad. Yeah, that's a great choice.
Yeah, thank you.
Number 3 for me is 2006. I could have sworn this movie, or I'm sorry, 2005. I could have sworn this movie came out in 2006, because that's when I think I saw it. But I guess it was released in 2005. And it is Rian Johnson's Brick.
Nice.
Have you seen this one?
Of course not.
All right. The premise of this movie sounds kind of terrible. It's basically like a film noir private eye, kind of like 40s private eye type story, mm-hmm. set in a high school. Like if somebody pitched that to me, I'd be like, get out of here. But it is incredible. It's really, it's also kind of a slow burn, but it is really, really good. Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays the main character. He's Brendan is his name. He's a loner, but he's trying to track down. Don't want to give too much away, but like his ex-girlfriend winds up dead, and he's trying to put the pieces together as to what happened and what who she got caught up with and all that stuff. It's really, really good. It's a really cool detective movie, but it's set in high school. It was unique when it came out, I thought.
Nice. Number 2, one of my favorite actors who directed and starred in the movie. This is his directorial debut, and that is 2002's Antoine Fisher.
Yes, I knew this. I thought this one would be on your list.
Oh, yeah. I've not watched this movie in a long time. It is not an easy movie to watch.
Right.
However, it is still very, very good, especially for someone's directorial debut, which is why it's so high up on my list. Denzel Washington gives an understated performance, and I believe obviously it's on purpose because I believe that he wanted Derek Luke to shine. Like Derek Luke carries this film with his performance. And like I said, Denzel Washington gives an understated performance. It's good, but it's not a performance with a lot of bravado to it, even though, you definitely feel Denzel Washington's presence in the scenes that he is in. But I appreciate that he made that decision and kind of gave that power to Derek Luke to do that. It's a very well directed movie, obviously, but it's not even a but. I just wonder how like what was going through Denzel Washington's head when he was directing this movie, because like I said, it's not an easy watch. I mean, I've seen like tougher watches, but like this is I wonder what drew him to this particular story to say like this is the one that I want for my directorial debut. Yeah.
I don't know.
And not like a lighter movie.
Right. I don't know. This one didn't make it to my list just because I have seen it, but I've only seen it once, and it was probably back in 2002. I rented it. I remember renting it from Blockbuster when I was working there, but I remember liking it, but I just don't remember anything about it. Yeah,
this is one of the movies that I rented from the library, when I was watching all those movies. And that one stuck with me.
I need to rewatch it for sure.
Yeah.
Number 2 for me is a movie that I debated putting at number 1, and but I have not watched it in a few years, and I'm honestly like scared to rewatch it because it's a movie that I loved when I was 20, and I'm worried that I won't love it as much now that I'm 40. It's kind of like what you were saying with Love and Basketball, not because I'll view the characters differently. I just think I'll view the quirkiness of the movie differently, if that makes sense. Anyway, it is 2004's Garden State, directed by Zach Braff.
Yeah, I knew that one was going to be on your list.
Yes,
have not seen.
And like I said, you haven't seen Garden State either.
I haven't seen Garden State.
I thought for sure you had seen this one. Wow,
nah.
I was obsessed with this movie in 2004. I saw a teaser for it when I went and saw Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and there was no dialogue in the teaser. It was just, you can still see it on YouTube. It was just set to Frou Frou's Let Go, which is in the movie. And the visuals, I just loved. Like, I was so hoping when I went and saw the movie that the movie would be as good as that teaser was, because that teaser was just so good to me in my brain. And it was. I really loved this movie. I want to say I saw it a couple times in the theater. This was the type of movie that back in 2004 I wanted to make, and it spoke to me on every level. I watched it over and over again when I bought the DVD, and it's funny, it's one of the last DVDs I remember buying that actually came with the little insert, I remember because like they had started to go away, and I remember buying the DVD and being like, please, and I opened it up and they had it, and I was like, yes. And I don't watch too many movies with the commentaries, but I watched this one with the commentary from Zach Braff and Natalie Portman. Yeah, I loved this movie. I thought it was so good. Zach Braff has gone on to direct a couple other things. I think only really one other movie that he's just recently he wrote and directed a movie with Florence Pugh, but before that he wrote and co-wrote and directed a movie called Wish I Was Here that I had high hopes for, but it was not nearly as good as this movie. And then he's gone on to direct some comedies that were just kind of okay. So in my opinion, he hasn't directed. I haven't seen the Florence Pugh movie, but he hasn't directed anything quite as good as his debut. And this I thought was just a phenomenal debut. It was what I wanted. I wanted more movies like this back in 2004.
All right.
Honorable mention time.
Honorable mention time. We are, I already mentioned Mission Impossible 3. The Road to El Dorado is a fantastic, very severely underrated animated film, but it's so good.
I have not seen it.
You would like it. You would very much like it. It stars Kenneth Branagh and Kevin Kline, and they are excellent in their roles. Monsters Inc., another animated movie. Next Friday, I was going back and forth with this and Dawn of the Dead because I love Next Friday. It is obviously the original Friday is the better movie, but Next Friday is so funny. Like every time I watch it, I am in tears.
Who directed Next Friday?
Steve Carr.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve Carr. Oh, and for Road to El Dorado, it was Eric Bergeron and Don Paul. Monsters Inc., it was Lee Unkrich. Unkrich and David Silverman. I wasn't sure if I had misspelled it or not. Joe Dirt, cult classic. Very funny movie.
Yeah. Joe Dirte.
Yeah. Just put an E on it and I pronounce it Dirte. This movie kind of grew in popularity over the years. When it came out, it didn't get great reviews, right? But this was a movie that me and my friends quoted all the time. And my last honorable mention is not a good movie, but you cannot tell the story of filmmaking without this movie. I debated putting it on my list, but again, it is so bad that they use this movie to tell you what not to do. And that is Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
Nice. I did not even think about that movie when I was making
It is one
list,
of the greatest directorial debuts of all time, but not because the movie is good. It's because the movie is bad. You cannot tell the story of film without mentioning this movie.
Right. I am not a huge person who seeks out bad movies, like the so bad they're good type movies. And so I had heard about The Room for a while and just had not really bothered to check it out until I don't know what made me finally do it. But I finally found a copy of it or bought a copy of it or something while I was living in California, and my roommate and I decided to watch it. And holy cow, I must have watched that movie a dozen times in like a 2-week period or something, because I showed it to everyone I knew. I was like, you have got to see this movie.
When I was working at the theater, there were monthly screenings of this movie.
Yes,
I believe it. Always a line to see it because people were just watching it over and over.
Yeah.
It is horrendous.
But it is so funny because it's like Tommy Wiseau, I mean, I think is trying to save face now by saying it was always meant to be a comedy, but you just watching that movie, it was never meant to be a comedy.
No.
But it is so funny because it is just so it's like aliens. It's like aliens watched humans and they were like, we get it. We can make a movie. And have no understanding of how people talk or how they interact or anything. It's just it's so funny.
Yeah.
Everybody should see The Room.
Everybody should see The Room at least once. You at least once. Just like I said, just so you know what not to do in a movie, because Tommy Wiseau does everything wrong.
Right. Everything.
And I don't, obviously I don't know Tommy Wiseau. I'm pretty sure he's a good guy or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
And I know that this movie when he was making it. It probably still to this day means a lot to him.
Right, sure.
But again, everything is wrong.
Right.
Literally everything.
And part of me feels bad for that. Like it's hard when somebody, if like you said, it means a lot to him, and so to have like the world laughing at what you worked on so hard, it's gotta suck. But I'm glad that he kind of has embraced it a little bit, and like I said, he calls it a comedy now, and just kind of embraces who he is. I forget what movie. Oh, Napoleon Dynamite. He is definitely the type of person that like. He is who he is, and he's not going to change for anybody. And you either will accept him or not. And that's great. I think, that's how you should be. And absolutely, so I applaud him for that, for sure.
And the silver lining of the movie is that it has brought so many people together, because of how bad it is. But that's what you want as an artist, like what people think of The Room is probably not what he intended, but the fact that he has created something that people can enjoy together, whether it is good or bad, like that's what all creators want. So
right, and I mean, you and I just said everyone should see The Room, so I mean, it's like we are promoting his work. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that's true. Yeah. Some honorable mentions for me. I do have Monsters Inc. on there. I had the directors listed as Pete Docter, David Silverman, and Lee Unkrich, and I put a little asterisk by it because Lee Unkrich, according to IMDb, co-directed Toy Story 2. So the Pete Docter and David Silverman were debuts, but Lee Unkrich technically wasn't. So I guess it still counts, but
maybe I think I missed that Pete Docter.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't actually look at the case. That I was just going off IMDb. But Donnie Darko, 2001, Richard Kelly, that was a directorial debut. And
how did I forget Donnie Darko?
Really solid. Yep. Shrek was a directorial debut. Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen directed in 2001. I don't love this movie, but I gotta point it out because it won Best Picture, and that is 2002's Chicago, directed by Rob Marshall, who went on to direct one of the Pirates movies. I still think Gangs in New York should have won Best Picture that year, but that's just me. 2004's Anchorman, directed by Adam McKay. That was a directorial debut, which I didn't realize. Love that movie still. I have Saw on my list. Thank You for Smoking, 2005, directed by Jason Reitman. Have you ever seen that movie, Thank You for Smoking?
No.
That's an excellent movie as well. Aaron Eckhart plays the lead role. Really solid movie. I really liked that when it came out. 2009's Crazy Heart, directed by Scott Cooper. That won Jeff Bridges an Oscar. 2009's Moon, directed by Duncan Jones, starring Sam Rockwell. That was a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
And then I've got a couple more on here, but one that this is the comic book movie I thought you were going to say, which is 2005's V for Vendetta, directed by James McTeague. That was a debut, and I looked up James McTeague earlier, and he was the first assistant director for the Wachowskis, because the Wachowskis wrote V for Vendetta, and I was curious how he got that gig, and it's because he had worked with the Wachowskis, and I guess they helped him maybe or supported him with his directorial debut. Yeah. And then I've also got 2001's Maid, which I pulled off the shelf because I don't know if you're familiar with this one. Directed by Jon Favreau. So it's his directorial
I'm familiar
debut.
with it, yeah.
It's kind of a spiritual sequel or maybe a companion film to Swingers. It's got Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn, and Vince Vaughn is very much kind of like his Swingers character. This is a movie I have not seen in a long, long time, but I remember really liking it. Yeah. And so I might have to rewatch it at some point. But yeah, those are my honorable mentions, along with, some of the ones you named that I had kind of forgotten about. Napoleon Dynamite, Little Miss Sunshine, Dawn of the Dead, stuff like that.
Yeah. V for Vendetta, I've only seen once, and I don't really remember it. That was one of the movies that I had rented from the library, and I guess it just got lost in all the movies that I was watching at that time.
Right.
I own the 4K, but I have yet to watch it. But I've not watched that movie in like 18 years.
Right.
Number one, it's a movie that you mentioned in your honorable mentions, but that is 2001 Shrek.
Nice.
Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen. This is another movie that you cannot tell the story of film without this movie. This is one of the best animated movies there has ever been. You watch it through one lens as a kid, and it's great. You watch it through a completely different lens as an adult, and it's even better.
Really? I need to do that because I have not watched Shrek in a long, long time. And I remember seeing Shrek 2 in the theater and thinking it was so funny. And I've not seen that movie probably since I saw it in the theater. So I really need to sit down and rewatch, especially the first two. And I don't know if I've ever seen the third and fourth one, to be honest with you. But
I like the third one. The fourth one is,
forgettable.
Yeah.
The first one I've seen, it has had such an interesting like resurgence. It's got there's like so much love for Shrek on the internet that it's just it's kind of wild to me. But hearing you say that it's even better as an adult makes me really feel like I really need to revisit it and watch that again.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to watch that again. Eddie Murphy gives a fantastic performance. I think, I could be wrong, but this might be Mike Myers' biggest movie.
It probably is. His Austin Powers were pretty big, but I don't think they were as big as this.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, this is I think everybody who's listening to this has seen Shrek, so I could I could go on and on, but
yeah.
Shrek is great. If you haven't seen it, watch it.
I only recently found out that Chris Farley was originally cast as Shrek and actually recorded most of the lines for the movie.
Yeah.
And then died. And so then they had to get someone else, and Mike Myers came in. And Chris Farley did not play it the way Mike Myers does with the like kind of Scottish accent.
No, he didn't.
It was just straight. It was Chris Farley. And I've heard some of the takes, and I was like, man, that would have been such a different movie.
Yeah.
With Chris Farley as the voice rather than Mike Myers.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. My number one is a movie that I seriously need to rewatch because I won't have much to say about it because it's been so long since I've seen it, but I remember it had a pretty big impact on me. And it's probably a movie. I remember when we did our list of 90s movies, you were like, there's a movie I've never heard you mention. And you probably have never heard me mention this one either. But it is 2000's You Can Count on Me, directed by Kenneth Lonergan.
You've never, ever mentioned that.
This movie stars Laura Linney. She got an Oscar nomination for it. And Mark Ruffalo in one of his earliest role. I don't know. I'd have to look up when Mark Ruffalo started acting. But this was definitely one of the first times I had ever seen Mark Ruffalo. And they play siblings. And she's kind of the, by the book, straight, kind of, it says on the back, she's like a conservative, whatever. And he's kind of the troublemaker, and he's back in town, and he connects with her son, who is played by Rory Culkin, who's like 8 years old or something. And it just kind of throws her life into a tailspin, her kind of troublemaker brother coming back into the picture. Kenneth Lonergan would go on to direct Manchester by the Sea, which I thought was an amazing movie. And so, and this movie made Mark Ruffalo one of my all-time favorite actors. So I was actually really surprised. I mean, Laura Linney is amazing in it. Obviously, she got nominated. I was really surprised Mark Ruffalo didn't get nominated for it because I remember thinking he just was so good in it. So I have not seen it in a long time. Matthew Broderick is also in it. Nice. I need to rewatch it because I need to remember why I love it so much. But that is my number one pick.
Nice.
Count on me. Yeah. Well, so out of my 10, I think you saw one. Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah.
But that's all right. That's all right. Well, we'd love to know what you think of or what directorial debuts you would choose for your top 10 list. You can always let us know at cinemaheroes.com. You can comment on our Instagram, which is the same handle, @CinemaHeroes. If you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a comment down below what you think about our lists and what movies we may have forgotten about. And give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I think that about wraps it up for this episode, though. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.